There's a moment in every person's life when they quietly ask themselves a powerful question: is this really all I'm capable of? Not because life is easy, but because deep down you know there is more inside you than what your current results are showing. More strength, more potential, more purpose waiting to be unlocked. Today is not about hype or empty motivation. It's about a shift, one decision in the way you think that can change how you act, how you persist, and ultimately how you live. Most people are not held back by lack of talent or opportunity. They are held back by the way they think when no one is watching, the thoughts they repeat, the excuses they accept, the limits they never question. But the truth is, the moment you change the way you think, you change the direction of your life. This video is designed to challenge you, awaken you, and remind you of the power you already carry. If you've ever felt stuck, tired of starting over, or frustrated because you know you're meant for more, stay with me until the end. What you're about to hear isn't just words. It's a mindset that has transformed ordinary people into unstoppable achievers. Listen closely, because the mental shift you're about to discover has the power to change everything. Definiteness of purpose is the foundation upon which every meaningful achievement is built, because a mind without a clear aim drifts, while a mind with a fixed direction begins to organize life around that goal. When a person knows exactly what they want, confusion disappears and energy stops being wasted on distractions. The mind becomes selective, choosing thoughts, habits, and actions that align with that purpose and rejecting those that do not serve it. Most people struggle not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they have never committed to a single definite objective. They hope, wish, and dream, but they do not decide, and without decision, the mind remains scattered. A definite purpose acts like a magnet, pulling resources, ideas, people, and opportunities toward the individual, often in ways that cannot be logically explained. Once the purpose is fixed, the subconscious mind begins to work continuously, even in moments of rest, searching for solutions and paths forward. Obstacles no longer appear as reasons to quit, but as problems to be solved, because the purpose is stronger than temporary discomfort. This clarity also builds confidence, as doubt thrives in uncertainty, but weakens when direction is firm. A person with definiteness of purpose no longer measures themselves against others, because their focus is internal and forward-looking rather than external and comparative. Decisions become easier, time is used more wisely, and persistence develops naturally, since quitting would mean abandoning a clearly defined destination. Even failure takes on a different meaning, becoming feedback rather than defeat, because the purpose remains unchanged while methods evolve. Definiteness of purpose transforms effort into momentum, as each small action contributes to a larger vision, creating a sense of progress and control. It sharpens discipline, because when the mind knows what it wants most, it is willing to sacrifice what it wants now. This mental state separates those who merely exist from those who deliberately build their lives, as purpose gives meaning to struggle and direction to ambition, shaping identity, behavior, and outcomes through sustained, focused intent rather than chance or circumstance. Control of thought is the ability to consciously choose what occupies the mind, because thoughts are not passive events but active forces that shape behavior, emotion, and results. Every action begins as a thought, and repeated thoughts harden into habits that quietly direct daily life. When the mind is left unmanaged, it becomes a battleground where fear, doubt, and negative impressions from the outside world dominate without resistance. News, opinions, past allures, and the expectations of others easily take root, gradually forming a mental pattern that limits belief and weakens initiative. Gaining control of thought means recognizing that the mind can be trained, just like a muscle, through awareness and repetition. The dominant thoughts a person allows determine their emotional state, and emotions influence decisions far more than logic. A mind filled with doubt naturally looks for reasons to hesitate, while a mind filled with belief searches for ways forward. Control of thought does not mean ignoring reality, but interpreting reality through a lens of possibility rather than limitation. When challenges arise, the uncontrolled mind asks why this is happening to me, while the controlled mind asks how this can be used to grow. This shift changes the quality of response, turning reaction into deliberate choice. Thought control also requires discipline, because negative thoughts often arrive automatically, especially during stress or failure. The difference is not in their arrival, but in how long they are allowed to stay. A controlled mind replaces destructive thoughts with constructive ones, not once, but consistently, until new patterns are formed. Over time, this practice builds inner stability, making external circumstances less powerful. Confidence grows not from constant success, but from the knowledge that the mind can be directed regardless of conditions. This mastery creates alignment between desire and action, because when thoughts are focused on the goal, actions naturally follow the same direction. Control of thought becomes the silent authority behind persistence, courage, and creativity, shaping identity from the inside and influencing outcomes long before they appear in physical form. Faith in self and vision is the inner conviction that what you have chosen to pursue is possible for you even when there is no immediate evidence to support it. It begins as a mental attitude, a decision to trust your ability and your inner direction more than external opinions, past experiences, or present circumstances. Without faith, desire weakens and effort becomes inconsistent, because doubt silently drains energy and commitment. Faith is not blind optimism. It is a steady belief that grows through repeated self-affirmation and action. When a person believes in their vision, the mind starts to cooperate with it, aligning thoughts, emotions, and behaviors toward the desired outcome. This belief allows the individual to move forward despite uncertainty, because faith does not require guarantees, only commitment. Many people fail not because their vision is unrealistic, but because they abandon it too early, often at the first sign of resistance. Faith provides the emotional endurance to remain steady during delays, criticism, and temporary defeat. It also reshapes self-image, as believing in a vision requires believing that you are the kind of person capable of achieving it. This inner shift influences posture, speech, decision-making, and risk tolerance in subtle but powerful ways. When faith is present, opportunities that once went unnoticed become visible, because the mind is alert to anything that aligns with the vision. Fear loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because it no longer controls action. Faith allows you to act before confidence is complete, understanding that confidence is often built through movement rather than waiting. It strengthens persistence, as setbacks are interpreted as part of the process rather than signs of inadequacy. The absence of faith leads to dependence on approval and external validation, while its presence creates inner authority and independence of thought. Over time, faith becomes self-reinforcing, as small wins confirm belief and belief fuels greater effort. It also influences how others respond, because people are naturally drawn to those who carry quiet certainty in their vision. Faith in self and vision keeps the mind anchored during uncertainty, allowing progress to continue even when results are not yet visible and the path forward is still forming in the imagination. Persistence over circumstances is the mental strength that refuses to surrender authority to temporary conditions, setbacks, or opposition. Life rarely unfolds in a straight line, and every worthwhile goal is tested by resistance designed to reveal the depth of commitment behind it. Circumstances change constantly, but the person who persists understands that conditions do not define direction unless they are accepted as final. Persistence is not blind repetition. It is intelligent endurance that adjusts methods while keeping the purpose intact. Many abandon their goals not because the goal is wrong, but because the first obstacle convinces them that success is reserved for others. Persistence corrects this illusion by training the mind to see difficulty as a natural companion of progress. Each challenge strengthens resolve, sharpens problem-solving ability, and builds emotional resilience. A persistent mind does not interpret delay as denial, but as preparation. When circumstances appear unfavorable, persistence maintains forward motion, even if the steps are small and imperfect. This steady movement prevents discouragement from turning into defeat. Over time, persistence reshapes identity, transforming effort into habit and struggle into discipline. It develops patience without weakening ambition, allowing long-term vision to override short-term discomfort. Circumstances often test persistence through fatigue, criticism, financial pressure, or repeated failure, and each test offers a choice between retreat and growth. Those who persist understand that quitting brings immediate relief but permanent regret, while endurance brings temporary discomfort but lasting reward. Persistence also builds self-trust, because every time you continue despite difficulty, you prove to yourself that your word has meaning. This internal credibility becomes a powerful source of confidence. A persistent individual learns to separate emotions from decisions, acting in alignment with purpose rather than mood. As persistence accumulates, resistance gradually loses its power, not because obstacles disappear, but because the mind grows stronger than them. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, and what once seemed impossible becomes familiar through repeated effort. Persistence over circumstances ensures that progress continues regardless of external conditions, allowing determination to shape outcomes where chance and comfort would otherwise decide the course of life. Responsibility for results is the mental shift where a person fully accepts that their outcomes are shaped primarily by their own decisions, habits, and responses, rather than by external forces. This acceptance is uncomfortable at first because it removes excuses, but it is also empowering because it returns control to the individual. When responsibility is avoided, energy is wasted on blame, justification, and comparison, leaving little room for growth or improvement. Taking responsibility means recognizing that even when circumstances are unfair or difficult, the choice of response still belongs to the individual. This awareness changes the inner dialogue from helplessness to accountability, and accountability strengthens discipline. A person who accepts responsibility no longer waits to be rescued by opportunity, luck, or approval, because they understand that progress begins with ownership. This mindset sharpens awareness as every result becomes feedback rather than a verdict on self-worth. Success is analyzed to understand what worked, and failure is examined to identify what must change. Responsibility builds maturity of thought because it requires separating ego from outcome and focusing on improvement instead of protection of pride. It also strengthens consistency, since blaming circumstances leads to inconsistency, while ownership encourages steady effort regardless of conditions. When responsibility is embraced, procrastination loses its appeal because delay is recognized as a choice with consequences. This mindset fosters problem solving. As attention shifts from who is at fault to what can be done next, it also builds resilience because setbacks no longer feel personal or permanent, but instructional. Over time, responsibility shapes character, as keeping promises to oneself becomes a priority. This internal integrity creates confidence that is not dependent on praise or recognition. People who take responsibility gain respect, both from others and from themselves, because their actions align with their words. They stop waiting for motivation and instead act from commitment. Responsibility for results transforms effort into ownership, ownership into mastery, and mastery into freedom, allowing the individual to consciously direct their life rather than unconsciously react to it. Alignment of desire and action is the state in which what a person wants most is consistently supported by what they do daily, removing the conflict between intention and behavior. Many desires remain unrealized because they exist only as thoughts or emotions, while actions follow comfort, habit, or convenience. When desire and action are misaligned, frustration grows and self-trust weakens because the mind recognizes the gap between intention and effort. True alignment begins with clarity, as vague wants produce weak action while specific desires create urgency and direction. Once desire is clearly defined, action becomes a form of expression rather than obligation. Each deliberate step reinforces commitment, turning motivation into momentum. Alignment requires discipline because immediate pleasure often competes with long-term goals, and choosing action aligned with desire means delaying gratification. This repeated choice strengthens willpower and reshapes habits. Over time, aligned action becomes automatic, reducing internal resistance and increasing efficiency. When actions consistently support desire, confidence grows naturally, not from affirmations but from evidence created through behavior. This alignment also sharpens focus, as energy is no longer scattered across conflicting priorities. Distractions lose their appeal because they do not serve the central aim. Desire without action creates illusion, while action without desire creates exhaustion, but when both move together, effort feels purposeful and sustainable. Alignment also increases resilience because setbacks are easier to endure when actions are connected to a meaningful objective. Each challenge is faced with intention rather than avoidance. This harmony between desire and action influences decision-making, as choices are evaluated based on whether they move the individual closer to or farther from the goal. Over time, aligned action builds identity, as a person begins to see themselves as someone who follows through. This self-image reinforces consistency and raises personal standards. Alignment transforms ambition from a feeling into a lived practice, allowing progress to compound steadily through focused, intentional behavior that reflects what the mind truly values. As we bring this message to a close, remember that transformation does not begin in the outside world, but in the quiet decisions you make within your own mind. When purpose becomes clear, thoughts are controlled, faith is strengthened, persistence replaces surrender, responsibility is accepted, and action aligns with desire, life begins to move in a new direction. These are not separate ideas, but connected forces that work together to shape character, influence outcomes, and determine the level of success you experience. The mental shift that changes everything is the choice to think deliberately, act intentionally, and remain committed regardless of circumstances. When you make this shift, you stop drifting and start direct. Turning potential into progress and vision into reality, I wish you the strength to stay focused, the courage to persist, and the confidence to trust your path as you move forward. May your efforts be rewarded, your mindset remain strong, and your goals come closer with every step you take. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to invest in your own growth.